Hi, Dawn with Bit by Bit Bodyworks here. What I've got for you today is a pretty simple exploration. I really love playing with practices that allow me to act on something. So this practice is all about pushing with the arms, pushing with the legs, and what information that gives me about myself, how my pieces are relating to one another and moving relative to one another. So in the first one with pushing with the arms, you're going to basically be in this position that I'm in right now. So if your quads are really tight and this much knee flexion is an issue, or this much hip flexion, once we come forward into this kind of child's pose is an issue, you're going to use props to fill spaces. So that might be a couple of props coming between your calves and your bottom, so that the weight of your hips can release back onto them and your hands can be on the floor. The other place that I like to prop here is between the torso and the thighs. And the reason for that is there's something that quite naturally occurs at the lumbothoracic junction when perceived threat goes up. And what it is that area goes into extension, okay? And that extension and that guarding at that joint can make it really tricky to feel the relationship between our shoulders and our hips, but also to even access the musculature that we want to access and the ability to have force move through the shoulder girdle and the hips effectively. So I like to also prop the space between the tops of my thighs and my abdomen. So I fold a pillow and I get it right in the hip crease, and then I lay over it, and it supports me to stay in some flexion at that lumbothoracic junction. Okay, then I've got weight still in my pelvis, and I bring my hands to the floor. Now, I don't really care how narrow or wide the hands are. I want you to play. I want you to find the distance as you push that helps you feel, perceive, and get more information about you, more information about your shoulders, how your shoulder blades are moving relative to your rib cage and your spine. What allows you to perceive more of you as you push the floor away. You might even play with, as you push, allowing the jaw to open and the cheekbones to rise, and how that brings some extension into the cervical spine. You might play with also, as you do that, allowing the head to rise and look to the non-dominant side. Maybe the hands are slightly offset of one another, being that one is more forward than the other. So for this next one, I'm going to push and have my non-dominant hand ahead of my dominant hand. And as I push, I'm going to allow my gaze up and to the dominant side. And I really feel how that very naturally starts to invite some rotation through my thoracic and cervical spine. So I'm going to do that again, because it feels really, really yummy and like a really nice stretch down this whole side, non-dominant side, from the middle finger right down through my armpit and to my hip. And I also then feel some engagement in through the SCM on this dominant side that's different. It's like not a contracting but a lengthening. Okay? What I encourage you to do is maybe come to standing before and then explore that and come back up to standing and notice what you notice. Or as I was doing the last one, it occurred to me like, oh, this would be really yummy to do thread the needle, and then do this with a look in that direction, and then try thread the needle again and notice what changes in my ability to access rotation at the thoracic and the cervical spines. So that's pushing with the arms. Now, if flexion at the knees and the hips is just not available, how I'm going to set up for the leg push, you could do the arm push the same way. So I'm going to lay along a bolster. I got to start back here because I'm going to push myself forward. And I could then lay along the bolster and do my arm push here. Right? So if that position that I demonstrated before isn't available for you to come into hip and knee flexion, know that this is an option too. So what I'm going to do is laying on this bolster, I'm just going to let my arms rest, and I'm going to start with simply pulling my pants up, but that's kind of what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to draw my knees into the floor, and that brings me into some hip flexion and some an anterior tilt, some extension at the lumbar spine. And I'm going to release down. I'm going to push the knees in and feel some flexion here and some extension here. Then I'm going to start to draw the knees in, tuck my toes under, and push myself forward. I'm going to draw the knees in, tuck the toes under, push myself forward. Draw my knees in, tuck my toes under, push myself forward. Now I might decide that I want to draw one knee up and out to the side, tuck that big toe in, push and straighten that leg. The heel comes towards the ceiling. I might do that a couple of times on one side, and then a couple of times on the other side. Pushing with my legs. Okay, cultivating that flexion at the hip, that extension in the lumbar spine. Again, really invite you to notice how your low back feels after, how your mid and upper back feel, how your neck and head feel. I really find that these explorations where we're acting on something and there is a force being generated on something, that something pushes back. And that pushback, that push into and that push back actually is required for us to gain information about ourselves and what's moving and what's not moving, and supports better resting and active tension in our tissues. So if you are somebody that's got low back, kind of always feels like the back is tight, or always feels like your shoulders carry a lot of tension, or your neck, I really encourage you to play with this and notice what you notice. So as always, get down, play, explore, discover what's possible.